Well, turning now to the next steps in the trial of former Minnesota police officer Derek Chauvin. Last week, a jury found Chauvin guilty of murdering George Floyd. His sentencing is now set for June 16th. Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison led the prosecution. He's live with us this morning with reaction and a look at what happens next. Mr. Attorney General, good morning to you, sir.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
You said that you were not convinced that you would actually win this case until you heard Judge Cahill announce the guilty verdict. Family thought it was a slam dunk from the very beginning because of that video. Why were you so skeptical?
Well, if you look at the history, there's ample reason to doubt. I mean, look at the Rodney King case. Didn't that video shock the world? Weren't we all convinced based on those 57 blows to that man? And even more recently, Walter Scott essentially executed the state court jury hung and did not convict, although that was on video. It took 4 years for Laquan McDonald's case to come forward and put Jason Van Dyke on trial for the execution of that young man, and that was on video. So just because there's ample video does not mean you don't have to put on a very robust, thorough, comprehensive case. So we actually approached the case as if we didn't have the video. And then when we put the video in, it was kind of like icing on the cake.
Your team's indicated that you're going to be seeking a harsher sentence for Derek Chauvin based on a number of aggravating factors. When you were asked about the messaging of a max sentencing, you said something that caught my attention. You said you think it's important for the court, for the judge in this case, to not go light or heavy. And you pointed out that the state never wanted to exact revenge. What kind of sentence would hold him accountable, Mr. Ellison?
Well, we're still in the midst of working on that issue, but I would say it needs to reflect the severity of the harm inflicted, right? But it should not be a vindictive sentence. It should not be a sentence designed to advance a political cause. It should be a sentence that reflects the severity of harm inflicted upon George Floyd and the people who loved him and his family, who are the surviving victims. It should not be excessive. The state should never inflict more punishment on somebody than is warranted by justice. But I think that, and so I'm not here to announce a number that we're seeking, but I will say that we would not be in favor of a vindictive sentence, nor would we be in favor of a sentence that is that minimizes the very serious nature of the harm that George Floyd suffered.
A lot of folks would be surprised to hear that you said you actually felt a little bad for Derek Chauvin. Why was that?
You know, I spent 16 years being a criminal defense attorney. I've been in jail cells talking to people accused of crimes. And, you know, they are human beings. They have people who care about them. And I think and I never want to be one who loses sight of someone's humanity just because they acted inhumanely. It is important for us to act justly, not vindictively. And remember that there are people who care about Derek Chauvin, too. And so he's going to have to be held accountable like everyone who did what he did should be. But he's still a member of humankind, and he should be treated with that respect.
Mr. Attorney General, one of the things I found striking about the case is that here you had George Floyd's death that sparked, you know, this global racial reckoning. But during the course of the trial, your team didn't talk about race. It wasn't about race in that courtroom. Why was the conscious decision made not to make race a part of the trial?
Well, the fact is there is a Minnesota Supreme Court case which says that if prosecutors inject race into a case, that could be basis for a mistrial. So we were careful to not do that. But in addition to that, you know, this is an example of what I would describe as institutional racism. There's no overt, explicit mentioning of George Floyd's race by the officers. But I believe that it's very clear that these kind of offenses, these kind of crimes happen to people who, are living, who are often people of color, who are people unemployed and low income, people who have institutional barriers working against them. I think there's sort of a green lighting, and there's a sense that, hey, if we do something bad to this person, nobody's going to really care. They don't matter. And so I would say this is not a case of explicit KKK-style racism. It's more of an institutional problem that means that people of color get worse outcomes in general. And it's not the kind of thing that you would expect to see happen to a white person of means.
Last question before we let you go, Mr. Ellison. The remaining 3 officers, that trial set to happen in August. Are there conversations underway that could lead to some sort of plea deal, or are these 3 cases that are going to happen in August no matter what?
I'm not at liberty to talk about that. I'm sorry for that. Whenever I dodge questions, I at least admit that I'm doing that. But I will say that, we are, these gentlemen are all considered innocent until proven guilty. And we're going, and as a prosecutor, we're ministers of justice, not ministers of punishment. We believe in accountability. And we're going to stand for that principle.
I knew you wouldn't answer, but I had to ask. So, yeah. Attorney General Keith Ellison.
You're a good journalist, man.
Appreciate you, sir. Thanks as always. Thank you. Thank you.
You too. Have a good one.
Both sides there. All right.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. All right. Thanks, Greg.
Hey, thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Find your favorite recipes, celebrity interviews, uplifting stories, shop our favorite deals, and so much more with the Today app. Download it now.